If you're thinking about building a home on private land, there's a handful of things that you should know right off the bat, and you should at least know how to ask questions about. Hey, I'm Kevin Lightman. I'm a manufactured home dealer. My family's been in the business for 50 years. And what I find a lot are folks who have gone to dealerships who have maybe a website where they can customize a home, and they'll put in their features, they'll click a button, and hey, home is ready, and they start thinking that's the cost. And they haven't considered the land costs or what you need to do to set it up. So I'm just going to rattle through a handful of questions you should ask any dealer before you start getting into the build process, so you know how to budget, you know what you might be looking at, and you know what difficulties you might have, and also what successes you might have, and how big of a home you can build. And if you find this video helpful and informative, make sure to give me a follow. First, you want to consider the land cost, but there's two costs you want to consider in terms of that. One is, how much does the land actually cost? And two, what do you need to do to develop it? You can see a lot like this doesn't have a lot of elevation. This should be fairly easy to work on. But you might find a lot that has no city water and sewer access, has extreme elevations, it might have bad soil, it might have a lot of different properties. So even if you find that lot for cheaper, you might end up spending more money in the long run. So you want to balance out your lot cost with what might be easy to build versus what might be more available in your area. Then you need to consider setback to the road. How far do you need to build into this lot, which is going to add to your driveway cost, and it's also going to affect the accessibility of the lot to make sure that the home can actually arrive safely. You want to look for things like power lines. You see on this side, it would be very difficult. On the side of the road that we're on, all clear. But you have to make sure that the home will actually fit. There might be a temporary bridge that needs to be built to get a home across if you're dealing with any kind of elevation. So thinking about just how the home will actually physically arrive on property is important. After that, it's important to consider the water and sewer hookups. So on some lots, you might have access to city water and sewer. I would say those are typically the easiest. You do have to pay a tap-in fee to the city, but once you've done that, it's this minor excavation to trench those lines into where your home is going, so that the infrastructure is set up so that you can repair leaks in the future, anything that may happen, and you have access to those lines. But if you don't have that, you need to start thinking, what do you need to do to incorporate water and sewer into your build costs? Do you need to drill a well? Do you need to add a septic tank? Those prices can vary tremendously, especially in the area you're at. Things like wells, the depth that you drill down to can dramatically change the price. So if you're in a place where there's a lot of water and there's easy access for the wells, you might only be digging a little bit, and it might be a $5,000-$10,000 job. It could be a $20,000-$30,000 job if you've got to dig way deep down. So it's hard to know until you've walked a lot or you've talked to a professional. Most well drillers can at least give you a basic idea, and they might know your area pretty well and at least have a rough estimate. You also want to figure out where the property lines are and start getting an idea from that of what style of home you can bring in and how you want it to lay out. For instance, on this lot, it's going to be a little narrow. So you add a garage, you add the home, and then the setbacks. It would be very difficult to place a home facing horizontal to the road, which limits your model choices to homes that are facing vertical to the road. If you had a lot that was maybe wide but didn't have a lot of depth, then you might want a home that faces horizontal, and then you can set it up that way. So sometimes you might have an idea in your mind of what home you want, but your lot might not accommodate it. So you have to figure out, based on the space you have, what is the home that's going to be right for you, what's going to leave you enough yard space, what's going to give you the lifestyle that you want, what's going to give you the architectural features that you enjoy or you might think will resell well if that's one of your goals. So all of those need to be in consideration when you've found the land. And if you pick out your home first and then look for land, you might find it doesn't accommodate exactly what you want, and you might have to make a change there. And after all of that, you also want to consider zoning and if you are going to build a modular home or a manufactured home. And a couple big things that change on that. Manufactured homes are always going to be more affordable. You can set them on a concrete slab. You can tie them down on piers. It's a much less expensive foundation. It's still very safe, but you can't have a basement. You're not going to be able to build something like that or a crawl space underneath. You're going to have underpinning like what you see in manufactured home communities. Some of us call it skirting. So there are ups and downs to that. It's much more affordable. It's an easier foundation. It's a quicker setup and install process. So you will save some money there. You'll also likely save money on the home itself, but you're going to lose on some of that aesthetic. If you do a modular home, then you can install a crawl space, or you can install a basement. You can do a lot of other things with it, and you can eliminate the underpinning. There's a lot of different ways you can do that. However, you're going to pay more in concrete. You're going to pay more in the setup cost. Typically, not always, but typically, they're going to crane set a modular home versus a manufactured home, which they can wheel onto the pad and then remove the wheels, axle, and hitch afterwards. So you add a lot of cost, you gain a lot of aesthetic value. That being said, one thing people talk about a lot is, what about my resale value? If it's a manufactured home, I basically have a trailer on this site, right? So it's not going to sell well. And that's not really the case. The reality of it is, when you buy it as a manufactured home, it is titled in the same way that a car is titled. When the home is on site and it is permanently sited, it's tied down, the wheels, axle, and hitch are removed. You bring your title to your title office. You have them eliminate it and replace it with a real estate deed. And that will now function and sell the same way any other real estate functions and sells. So it doesn't necessarily hurt your resale value, although maybe the aesthetic will, but you also get a discount up front. So you have to consider all of those things to figure out, how are you going to make your dream come to life? It's not just find a piece of land and then the home that you love is just going to magically plop on it. The foundation and infrastructure work alone can vary so dramatically from lot to lot, and from type of home build and how you want to do the roof pitch and what other architectural features you might want to add to it. So there's no real one-size-fits-all answer. But what is important is that when you go to your dealer, you need to ask some real questions, not just, this is the home I want. Don't stop there. You need to start thinking, if you already have land, what home fits on this based on the dimensions? What kind of foundation do I need? What does zoning allow? Where are my setbacks, and how much distance do I have to work with? And then you can start asking questions about the infrastructure. What do I need to do to make this home functional? What do I need to do to make it move-in ready? How am I getting electric to this home? Where is my tap-in for these different items, water, sewer, if there is a tap-in available? If not, what are my options, and how does that price out? And what I told you today, this is not an exhaustive list. This is just some of the major features, but you might find other costs that are associated with how you want to do a build, or maybe something that's very specific to a lot. You might need something like a retaining wall, which can add a ton of cost. You might need some landscaping features. There are a lot of different things that can come into play that I wouldn't know until I actually saw your land. And no dealer would. So if you're just ordering something off of a website and you think you have a good idea of the price and the budget, you probably don't if you're only talking about the home. You need to really think not just what does the land cost, but what do you have to do to that land to make the home ready? And if you don't ask those questions up front, a lot of dealers will stick you with a bill that you don't expect, or things will come up and shock you. I don't want you to feel shocked or surprised when you buy a home. I want you to feel like you're confident going into a build that's going to lead to the home that you truly want, that's going to fit your budget. That's the most important thing, and every dealer should be focused on the same thing. Hope this helps.